We're joined now, however, by one of Donald Trump's longtime friends, former advisor to the Trump campaign, Roger Stone, also a best-selling author. Roger, how you doing?
Excellent. Great to be here.
Thanks very much for joining us. So first of all, your reaction to last night, obviously another very successful night for Donald Trump in the primary process.
Well, really, Trump NATO. I mean, he breaks 50%. He gets almost 60% in Connecticut, breaks 50% in all states. Whatever happened to this notion that there was a ceiling beyond which Trump could not get, and that ceiling was in the middle 30s. So with so much of this campaign, that rule and all rules seem to be out the window.
I want to ask you about a recent Politico article, or you were interviewed, talking about sort of the differences between the Trump campaign when you left last summer and what you see right now, maybe more of a traditional campaign structure. Have you seen that, just kind of observing the campaign, and how much has the Trump campaign benefited from that, including bringing in Paul Manafort to handle some of the delegate wrangling?
Well, I think the beginning of the campaign, Donald Trump himself envisioned an all-communications-based strategy based around his big speeches and rallies in the states, his debate performances, and as many TV interviews as he could smash into his schedule. I was skeptical about that strategy, but in all honesty, it has worked incredibly well. Now, however, you're in a different phase of the campaign where you've got to scratch up the necessary delegates to get to 1237 when you're very close and you have most of the leverage. So I think Donald was very wise to select Paul Manafort, who's an experienced convention politician. The Trump campaign, I think, had plenty of enthusiasm, but it lacked experience. And the trend line, Wisconsin, North Dakota, Colorado, Louisiana, was not good. I think you saw that reversed last night. Pennsylvania's two-tiered primary, both a preference primary and a delegate primary, extremely complicated. But the campaign parachuted a couple of real experts in there, gentlemen with deep political experience in Pennsylvania, and they pulled off a massive victory in both contests.
When you look at the sort of ground game operations and how they've evolved, I mean, obviously this is a race to 1237 that right now only Donald Trump can win prior to the convention. If there is that contested convention, however, do you feel like maybe some of the lax ground game, organizational game early on will come back to hurt the Trump campaign, where it seems like Ted Cruz has been lining up these delegates that on a second or third ballot might be more likely to be loyal to him?
I just don't see a second ballot. My very most conservative count, and I'm keeping a running count based on a lot of assumptions and some knowledge, has Trump at 1250. I don't know that he will have 1237 at the end of the primaries, but I'm highly confident that he will have 1237 going into the convention a month later. So lining people up for second ballot support, while it sounds great, I really don't believe there will be a second ballot.
What do you think we're going to hear from Donald Trump, not only with his foreign policy speech today, but just going forward? He talked about a more presidential Trump. I think his exact phrase will be, he'll be so presidential, we'll be bored. How does he sort of grasp that new tone, but also not lose some of the support that he's built up, that like the fact that he's not your typical, quote-unquote, presidential politician?
No, the fact that he's outspoken, that he's bold, that he's unscripted and uncoached, unprogrammed, is exactly what voters find refreshing and interesting about him. Let Trump be Trump. There's only one Donald Trump. Now, he does know the difference between dramatizing your points in a speech to 35,000 people in a stadium and sitting across from somebody at dinner. I think he completely understands that, and he's a very effective communicator. Frankly, the last thing I worry about is Trump's ability to communicate. That's the campaign's greatest single asset, and voters enjoy the fact that he is having a good time. He's obviously enjoying himself. He loves the country. He sees this as a crusade, as something bigger than himself. As he said repeatedly, this is a movement. It's bigger than me. So I think it would be a mistake to make any changes in terms of trying to make Trump something he's not. Voters see through that immediately. Trump will be Trump. I've known him 30 years, almost 40 years. There is only one Donald Trump. What you see is what you get.
Roger Stone joining us, political operative, Donald Trump, longtime friend and supporter. As has been well documented, you had a falling out with the campaign early on. Have you spoken either to Donald Trump or to anybody high up in the campaign recently? I don't want to say more of an "I told you so" kind of thing, but looking at it and saying, "Hey, these were some of the ideas, some of the suggestions I had early on, and it seems like some of them are being implemented now."
Well, I have spoken to the candidate and to members of his campaign from time to time. Those conversations are privileged. I prefer to look forward instead of looking back. This isn't about who was right and who was wrong. They ran up an enormous series of victories here through their early strategy, so you can't criticize it. All I want to do is make sure that the delegate votes are nailed down for this nomination and that the convention is used to set the tone for the entire campaign. The convention has to be viewed as one large television program, and you have to produce it to accentuate your key points and to resolve some of the questions about you.
Looking ahead now, one of the big questions is a vice presidential nominee, perhaps for Donald Trump, assuming he does lock up this nomination. Who do you think would be a good pick?
I think it's wide open. I really don't think that he has thought that much about it. He obviously needs to see whether or not he needs to reach out to somebody as a vice presidential candidate who brings a block of delegates with them or not. It looks to me like Ted Cruz is going to announce this afternoon that Carly Fiorina will be his running mate, would be his choice. That one kind of baffles me. She brings you no delegate votes, plus layoffs, plus outsourcing, plus golden parachute. It's almost like a Romney-like narrative for the Democrats. Seems to me to be a layup. So I don't know why you would take Carly Fiorina. She brings you nothing.
Well, who would you bring then? I mean, there's some names that you've thrown out the past couple of days. I mean, John Kasich, Marco Rubio, are those, if you were to have a conversation and maybe advise Mr. Trump at the top of your list of people that he should be looking at?
Only Donald Trump's going to make this decision. I think it's evident that both of those gentlemen are from key swing states, and they might help you there. On the other hand, I know there's a group of conservatives in Washington who are advocating the selection of Newt Gingrich for vice president. I mean, again, Trump is going to keep his own counsel, and only he will make this decision in the end. The one thing I do know about him is because he's a businessman and because that's the way he thinks, he's going to preserve all of his options until it's time to make a decision.
There was once a time where Donald Trump and Ted Cruz, how it was described as a bromance. It's safe to say that is over. Could you ever envision those two running on the same ticket?
I think it would be highly unlikely. You cannot call somebody the biggest liar in American politics and then in the very next breath choose them for vice president. That's not the same as calling Marco Little Marco. I think it has been devastating for Ted Cruz, and the more I look at it, the more Trump is right. Ted Cruz is a pathological liar who just can't stop.
Well, right now, Ted Cruz facing an uphill battle in terms of the delegates. We're talking with Roger Stone, political operative, again, a longtime Donald Trump friend and supporter. Ted Cruz and John Kasich, and it may come to a head now in Indiana. A lot of people looking ahead to next week in that particular state, but as has been well reported, and they've talked about their sort of colluding now where John Kasich's pulled out of Indiana. Ted Cruz is going to be focusing there. Latest polls do show Donald Trump leading by anywhere between 5 and 10 points in that state. How do you expect this decision by these two campaigns, the Kasich and Cruz campaign, to potentially impact Indiana or the states out west where Ted Cruz won't be campaigning and John Kasich has got it all to himself?
Well, all the candidates remain on the ballot, so their hardcore supporters are going to vote for them anyway. There is no such thing as uniting all the votes under one banner. That's just not going to happen. By reaching out to the most liberal candidate in the race, Ted Cruz kind of demonstrates that he'll go anywhere, do anything to be the nominee, despite John Kasich's support for NAFTA, his support for Common Core, his support for the expansion of Obamacare. It is obvious, therefore, that Cruz is the establishment stop Trump candidate du jour. The point, of course, is that even if you got to a second ballot, which I think is highly unlikely, I think the Bush-Romney crowd will drop Ted Cruz like a bad habit. In other words, he's serviceable right now as a vehicle to stop Trump, but that's not really who they want as the Republican nominee.
Hi, Mr. Stone. Ronald Cooper here. I'm a freshman at Franklin Pierce University. I just had a quick question. Do you think that
Sure.
Trump's, him not being as substantive as other candidates, both on the Republican side and the Democratic side, will turn out to hurt him against someone like Hillary Clinton, who for the longest time has been very open and very concise about what she would do? Do you think that's going to come back to hurt him in the general if he is the presumptive nominee?
I don't think it hurts as much as changing all your positions. In other words, Hillary was a big drum beater for NAFTA. Now she says NAFTA was a bad idea. Hillary was a big supporter of the crime bill, which her husband signed, which has incarcerated so many young African-American men for the possession of small amounts of drugs. Now suddenly she says, well, that was a bad idea too. You can't flip-flop on all your positions. Trump speaks in basic terms at a level that people can understand. I think you can get too wonky for the voters. So I'm really not concerned about that. I think the way to dominate this race, frankly, is for Trump to lay out a series of very bold and provocative proposals and then defend them, sell them and defend them.
Does that start with the foreign policy proposals today? And do you think we will see at least some more depth from Donald Trump, maybe to gear up for when he will obviously be attacked on this point in debates with Hillary Clinton?
Yeah, I can't predict what Donald Trump will do. I can say that he'll give as good as he gets, and that he is very anxious to climb in the ring with Hillary. There's so much material to work with: the emails, the pay for play at the Clinton Foundation, or Hillary's epic abuse of Bill's sexual assault victims. All of this is on the table because she chose to run.
Are you going to be getting back directly involved with the campaign at any point?
I have no plans to do so. I frankly think I'm more effective on behalf of Donald Trump from outside the tent, writing for 3 blogs, appearing wherever I can in the media to explain why I think he would be an excellent president.
What about a position in the administration should he win?
I could never be confirmed by the U.S. Senate. Zero chance. My life is, shall we say, too colorful.
Well, along those lines, obviously, one of your many hats that you wear in addition to political operative is best-selling author. I mean, you've had a bunch of books, including some that have come out recently. Just tell us a bit about what's on the bookshelves now from Roger Stone that people can check out.
Sure. The Clintons' War on Women. This is the ultimate definitive expose of Bill, Hillary, and Chelsea Clinton. This book will curl your hair. The Clintons have been involved in all kinds of crimes that you didn't even know about. And we refresh you on the ones you did know about. It's all here. It's a sordid tale of sexual assault and cover-up, rape, threats, strong-arm tactics, ambition, greed, lies, and deep family secrets. And then I have written a book called Jeb and the Bush Crime Family, which 11 days after I published this, Jeb took a dive, so I assume he read the book and threw in the towel. In paperback, this will be back out as The Bush Crime Family because it is the story of the entire arc of crime, starting with Prescott Bush, the U.S. Senator from Connecticut who made his money arming the Nazi war machine, and all the way to Jeb, who in the early days in Miami and in college and in boarding school was a well-known drug dealer. The Bushes are a perfect example of elite deviance. Do as we say, not as we do. And most biographies of the Bushes are a terrific whitewash. These are very cunning, very greedy, very ambitious people. And it would be one thing if they profiteered while they were giving the country prosperity and peace. This is my problem with both the Clintons and the Bushes. They have worked together to line their own pockets to make millions for themselves and their cronies. At the same time, their policies are destroying this country. They're destroying our job base. They're destroying our economy. Their immigration policies make our streets unsafe. So you can get both of those books by going to rogerstone.com, no D, rogerstone.com, or find them on Amazon.
Well, one quick follow-up on that. Has Donald Trump read either book? And will we hear about the first book that you mentioned, the Clinton book, at all, if they're on stage and during the campaign against Hillary Clinton?
He indicated on an NBC interview that he had read the book, which makes me feel good because it means he is well-armed.
Well, Roger Stone, we always appreciate you joining us. A big night last night for Donald Trump as he moves towards that 1237 count and winning the presidential nomination. Roger Stone, longtime Trump advisor, political operative, and best-selling author. Thanks for the time.
Great to be here. Thanks.